All right, so Ford has made its biggest investment in South Africa in 97 years. The company has pumped 15.8 billion rand of investment into our automotive sector. Ford and government joined forces in the multi-billion-rand Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone project 14 months ago. And the investment comes at a time when international companies like South African breweries are disinvesting in part in South Africa and putting other new projects on hold. Well, I'm joined now by economist Dr. R15bn. Good evening, Dr. Abedian. So, of course, this is fantastic news from Ford. Why are they investing?
I think they're investing for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it's a good vote of confidence in South Africa, in government's strategy going forward. At the same time, government has been hard at work over the past few years to establish special economic zones that have specific privileges or advantages for such investments, especially investments like Ford and similar industries that are not only catering for the domestic market, but also using their products to export. And the special economic zones have special support for such investments. It goes to show, Sally, that if government gets the right policies in place, the private sector would participate and revive the economy.
So are you saying, because we keep hearing that investors hate uncertainty, they hate a faulty electricity supply, they hate political shenanigans, and we've got quite a lot of that. Are you saying that it's the special economic zone that kind of creates a bubble for those investors that protects them? Is that the answer?
To some extent, of course, political uncertainty and corruption and shenanigans, even economic zones or special economic zones are not free of those. You cannot vaccinate them against such political shenanigans. However, special economic zones give the investors some, for example, special tax reliefs, special access to electricity and so on and so forth, within limits. But of course, Ford must have done his homework over the years, negotiations with government, got all the conditions in place that makes it profitable for it to invest such huge amounts, bearing in mind, Sally, that these type of investments are not something that if you're unhappy, you can pack it up and go. These are long-term commitments to the country, not only on the government policies, but also infrastructure, not only electricity, but also the functionality of transit, ports, railways, and very importantly, the stability of the labor relations. So all of those elements must have been around the table to convince Ford that this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, so it's a real commitment on Ford's part, which is highly welcome. Let's focus on electricity supply, because we know that Eskom is not out of the woods yet, but we also know in terms of policy, there's certainly more freedom whereby municipalities can apply to create their own electricity sources, and we are seeing moves towards allowing companies to have their own source of electricity. They could set up their own electricity supply. Do you think that's something that might have encouraged Ford as well?
I have no doubt that anything that promotes more generation, more reliability, and more certainty about power supply, it encourages all industry, not just motor industry. And in that regard, I must say, as good as these policy changes that you mentioned, we celebrate, but it's way too slow, way too limited. For the life of me, I don't understand why the Minister of Mineral and Energy doesn't free for all, households, industry, whoever wants to produce. We are desperate for investments. An interesting part of it is, if we get proper liberalization of generation and get the admin out of the way and politics out of the way, energy sector could attract as much, if not more, investment than Ford has put into this economy, and very quickly and right across the economy, not just in an economic zone, right across from north to south, east to west. And that is where I believe the minister is not moving fast enough, and the policymakers are dilly-dallying, not recognizing how important quick, reliable, and economic access to energy is for reviving the economy.
Well, thank you so much for chatting. Always great to talk to you. That was Dr. R15bn talking to us about the Ford investment, which is fantastic news.